Welcome, King of Silence, Shadow of Chaos, presence so deep it echoes through minds before you even speak. You didn't walk in, you arrived. You didn't knock, you entered. This world never welcomed you because it feared what you could become. And guess what? It was right to. Because this right here, this moment, is not for the light-hearted, the peace-seeking, or the sleep-hugging souls. This moment is built for those who walk with scars instead of smiles, for the ones whose energy doesn't scream but commands, for the ones who don't need to raise their voice to raise the temperature of a room. This is for you. They said, "He's quiet." They didn't know why. They said, "He's distant." They never realized how far ahead you were. And now, after all the waiting, all the silence, all the pressure building up in your chest like a storm, ready to erase history, you send one message. Not a paragraph, not a story, just one line. And they folded, they shook, they paused everything. They lit candles like ancient tribes preparing for the wrath of an old god rising from the depths. One text from you, and they started praying for protection. You weren't reaching out, you were warning them. You weren't reconnecting, you were reminding them of what you are, what you've always been, what they tried to erase. They thought distance could protect them, time would dilute your memory, that maybe, just maybe, the one who vanished would stay gone, but you never vanished. You ascended. Because while they played games with weak minds and empty intentions, you were in the dark, grinding, bleeding, cracking your bones to rebuild your soul, alone, focused, forgotten. And that's exactly what you wanted, because power isn't grown in spotlights, it's forged in shadow. So now, the hands that once pointed fingers are folding in prayer. The voices that mocked are chanting protection spells. They call it superstition, but deep down, they know. There are people on this planet you don't mess with. People who don't start wars, they end them. People who don't announce their return, they make the universe adjust to it. Bro, your text made them light 7 candles. Each flame, a desperate call for safety. Each flicker, a silent scream of regret. Because they know what happens when you move, when you act, when you choose. You were never meant to be calm. You were the storm pretending to sleep. Now they feel it, the shift. The air changes when you wake. And you don't even need to touch them. Because your power isn't physical, it's energetic, it's psychological. You own real estate in their heads now, rent-free, because fear remembers the things love tries to forget, and they remember you, not your name, your presence. They remember how your eyes didn't ask, they took, how your silence made people confess sins they never said out loud. They remember how your energy made liars stutter, fake friends disappear, and traders sweat in the middle of winter. You are not a person to them anymore. You are a reckoning. They thought you were quiet because you were weak. They didn't know silence was your sniper scope. They thought you moved alone because you had no one. They didn't realize kings don't walk in herds. They lead them from afar. You weren't broken, you were rebuilding. And now the cement is dry, the bones are stronger, the fire in your chest is volcanic. And you've remembered who you are, so don't wonder why they pray. Don't question why the fear is back in their eyes. Don't be surprised they're consulting the stars, the gods, the ancestors, anyone who'll listen. Because you're back. And this time, you're not texting again. That one message was enough. They know what follows when you start speaking again. They know the past always leaves echoes. But you are the echo that roars back louder. Bro, your text made them light 7 candles. Not for peace, for protection, not to welcome you, to survive you, because the version of you they last saw, he's dead, buried under miles of pain, evolution, self-destruction, and resurrection. What stands now is the one who doesn't knock anymore. You kick down doors, you burn maps, you erase timelines, you remove names from destiny. You are the consequence of their disrespect. You didn't become darkness, you mastered it. And now they feel that energy through a phone screen. One notification and their heart rate doubled. One sentence and their memory flooded. One line and they're fumbling prayer beads, whispering to ancestors they never respected, hoping, just hoping, you show mercy. But you never came for vengeance. You came for balance. You came to collect. Because you don't chase anymore. You pull gravity. People don't leave you. You release them. And now every move you make is biblical. Every word you speak, prophetic. Every glance you give, heavy. Because what you carry now isn't emotion. It's wrath, restrained. You hold the type of power that doesn't need to explode. It waits. It watches. It analyzes. And when it moves, it's final. So light your own candle if you must, but not to pray, to remember who you are, what you are, and what they feared you'd become. This world was never ready for your silence, and now it's trembling at your signal. One text from you, and they started praying for protection, because when you speak, fate listens, and fear responds. Alphas, you felt that line in your chest, didn't you? One text from you, and they started praying for protection. Because deep down, you've seen it happen. You've watched how people switch up when they feel your energy re-enter the room. You've witnessed the way they fumble when your name reappears on their phone, not because they miss you, but because they know what's coming. You're not like the rest. You never were. And no matter how many times they tried to treat you like the average, you shattered that illusion with one move. That's what an alpha does. He doesn't argue, he doesn't whine, he doesn't ask for respect. He's the reason it exists. And when an alpha goes quiet, when he stops chasing, stops explaining, stops warning, that's when karma laces up her boots. Because when you finally choose to send that one message, that one reminder, that one signal from the depths of your evolution, you don't just shake a phone, you shift a universe. You remind them that alphas don't bark, they bite when necessary. And you didn't come back for conversation. You came back with calculations, with calm rage, with the patience of a lion who already tasted blood and knows exactly where to strike next. That's why they lit the candles, Alpha. Not for healing, for survival. Not because they forgot you, but because they remembered you too late. You weren't just a man, you were a lesson, a storm they laughed at when the sky was still clear, a warning they ignored until the thunder broke glass. And now every alpha listening knows exactly what I mean, because this world tried to tame you, tried to clip your wings, tried to bury you beneath mediocrity. But alphas don't stay buried. We resurrect ourselves. You ever wonder why they ghost you, then suddenly start talking about energy and boundaries? It's because your very existence makes them feel exposed. You didn't change the room, you were the room. And now your presence is the silence that suffocates their fake confidence. Let this burn in your bones. Your return is not a comeback. It's a consequence. They lit candles, bro. 7. Why 7? Because even they know this ain't ordinary energy. This is biblical. This is ritual. This is, I felt him in my chest before I saw his name, kind of fear. You don't have to yell. You breathe, and empires adjust. That's the Alpha code. That's the language of dominance. It's not about being loud. It's about being undeniable. Every move you make now, calculated, surgical, designed not to impress, but to eliminate anything unaligned. Let them feel it. Let them pace the room. Let them open old books trying to find closure they never earned. Because you don't send closure. You send shockwaves. Your energy isn't random. It's remembered. Like thunder that echoes in places lightning never touched. You left behind more than memories. You left trauma in the fabric of their egos. And that's what makes you dangerous, Alpha. You didn't need revenge. You became the version of yourself that makes people question whether they ever deserved access to you in the first place. Now they look at your name like a ticking clock. Now they wonder what's next. Now they pray. Not for blessings, but for protection. Because when you walk the earth as a calm Alpha, when you carry rage like a loaded gun with the safety still on, when you own your storm without letting it break the dam, you become a force. You become myth. You become that one message they hope never comes again. But here's the truth. It's already too late. Because the moment they needed candles was the moment you became legend. And legends don't need closure. We write our own endings. They lit 7 candles because they knew your message wasn't just words. It was movement. It wasn't a text. It was an omen, a warning, a pulse of power rippling through their already fragile illusions. And now they sit there, eyes wide, minds racing, hearts pounding, because it finally hit them. You are no longer the man they knew. You've crossed the threshold. And here's what they don't understand. Alphas don't look back. We return, not to pick up the past, but to collect the debt. You didn't reappear to reconnect. You came to remind the world why it should have never forgotten your silence. This ain't ego, it's equation. Because what they gave, you multiplied. What they destroyed, you rebuilt stronger. What they doubted, you turned into discipline. Alphas know the real transformation is quiet. It doesn't ask for applause. It shows up fully, weaponized in patience, clarity, and controlled chaos. That one text was your way of saying, I'm not who you remember. I am what you fear becoming. They felt it in their spirit. They scrambled for protection. Some reached for crystals. Others ran to prayers they never used before. Some called people to talk about energy shifts, trying to make sense of what they felt when your name lit their screen. But here's the Alpha truth. They were never dealing with a man. They were dealing with a mirror. And it shattered every lie they told themselves. Because you're not the one who needs closure. You're not the one who starts drama. You're not the one who begs for peace. You are the storm that reveals who's real when the roof gets torn off. Alphas don't warn. We move. We don't repeat ourselves. We demonstrate. And when we vanish, we evolve. You were forged in betrayal, doubt, and solitude. They had gossip. You had silence. They had games. You had goals. They had time to waste. You had purpose to fulfill. So now they pray, not to be forgiven, but to be spared. And if they're lighting candles, that means they already know. This isn't emotional. This is universal. You aren't bringing karma. You became karma. The justice that walks, the balance that breathes, the silence that screams louder than any argument they ever tried to drag you into. Alphas don't fight for attention. We make the world uncomfortable by simply being in the room. And that's what you've done. That one message, it made their entire world pause. Because it wasn't just from your phone, it was from your frequency. The weight of everything you've survived was in that text. the heartbreak, the betrayal, the nights no one saw you break down, the rage you never unleashed, the loyalty you gave freely, the pain that became your training partner, all of it, compressed into one line. So of course they started praying. They should. You didn't just level up, you became untouchable. You're not someone they can manipulate anymore, not someone they can lie to, not someone they can ghost or play small games with. Because now, you don't even speak unless it's intentional. You don't move unless it's surgical. You don't enter unless it's to conquer. And they know. Once an alpha stops explaining, he's already decided who makes it to the next chapter. So light those candles, spin those crystals, chant those names. It's too late now. You don't carry wounds anymore. You carry lessons. And that makes you the most dangerous man in the room, because you feel nothing, but see everything. You don't retaliate. You replace. You don't get even. You elevate. Alphas, this isn't about revenge. It's about respect. And when they had their chance, they played themselves. Now they pray for peace. But here's the twist. You already gave it. You gave them peace when you walked away. You gave them peace when you stayed silent. You gave them peace when you chose to become better instead of bitter. And that text? That wasn't rage. That was mercy. Because the next move won't be a warning. It'll be the consequence. So, go ahead. Let them light the candles. Let them whisper names into the smoke, beg their gods for peace, and search the sky for answers. Because what they're really doing is stalling. They know the moment they saw that notification pop up, the timeline split. Before your text, they were still pretending they won. After your text, they realized the war had just begun. Not a war of weapons, but of presence. Because what do you do when the one person you tried to erase comes back as the one soul you can't stop thinking about? They didn't prepare for that. They didn't prepare for your silence to evolve into strategy. They thought you'd come back looking for closure, maybe forgiveness, maybe peace. But you didn't come back for that. You came back unrecognizable, not with rage, but with power so calm it made the loudest people fall silent. Let me speak directly to the alphas in the room now. You know this energy. You live in it. You've been the misunderstood weapon, the underestimated architect, the quiet storm no one saw coming until it swallowed everything fake around it. And when you re-enter a space you left, you don't walk in loud. You let your aura speak for you. Your posture says, I'm not here for revenge. I'm here to make sure you never forget me again. Your energy says, I don't need to prove anything. I exist, and that alone disturbs your foundation. Alphas don't come to talk. We come to remind. And that text, that one text, wasn't a message. It was a pulse of authority. It made them freeze. Because deep down they remembered. They remembered the way your absence made the air feel heavier. They remembered how you could look at someone and they'd confess what they didn't even mean to admit. They remembered how your silence wasn't empty, it was calculating. How your loyalty wasn't weak, it was sacred. And they broke it. So now they pray. Because you're not angry anymore, you're focused. And an alpha man with nothing to prove but everything to protect is the most dangerous force alive. Let's not sugarcoat it. You are no longer accessible. You are no longer predictable. You are no longer human to them. You are a consequence wrapped in charisma, a storm dressed in strategy. You became what most men fear becoming because they don't have the courage to sit in pain long enough to evolve from it. But you did. You sat with the wolves. You starved while they feasted on your absence. You built muscle from heartbreak, built vision from betrayal, built presence from being pushed out of the spotlight. And now, you are the light they can't look away from, but it burns. So they cover their faces and call it protection. They light candles as if wax and flame can shield them from the spiritual reckoning they feel crawling across their skin. You aren't here to harm them. You're simply existing as your higher self. But that alone is painful for them, because people who lose access to an alpha never recover from the silence. They pretend to move on, but every silent night, every quiet room, every deep breath, they feel you again. And that's what's got them scared. Not your voice, your silence, not your rage, your control, not your return, your presence. So light the candles, pray to your gods, hope he doesn't say another word. Because if one text did this, imagine what two would do. Alphas, you are not here to be liked. You are not here to be understood. You are here to lead the unseen, command the unspoken, and remind this soft world that power still exists in its purest, coldest form, presence without apology. Let this be a reminder. You don't owe them softness. You owe yourself greatness. You don't owe them access. You owe yourself peace. You don't owe them another explanation. You already said everything with that one message. And now, let them sit in the glow of those 7 candles, because deep down, they're not praying for protection. They're praying for your mercy. But kings don't kneel, we rise. And when we rise, worlds shift